Sup, it's Sora, welcome back to my channel, and today I want to share my thoughts on Kazuha. Now, disclaimer, this is not a build guide or anything like that. This is just me sharing my opinion on Kazuha, his strength, his place in the meta, all that relevant stuff. So, if you enjoy content like this, like to let me know so I know to continue making content that you enjoy. Subscribe to help me reach my goal of 500 subscribers, and without further ado, let's get into it. So, design-wise, I think Kazuha is a pretty cool character. His outfit and color scheme are pretty cool, and that side ponytail is definitely a choice, but his other aesthetic features make up for it, so he gets a pass. I like him as a character. That, chill, wandering, poetic swordsman vibe is something I can get behind. And I mean, yeah, that's kind of it on that. So, let's talk about the important stuff. Kazuha is a 5-star animal sword unit, and while, again, this isn't a build video, I do feel that it's important to point this out, since his biggest competition is a 4-star, and that kind of has its own impact on his pull value, because a lot of the situations where you could use Kazuha, you could also use Sucrose, but there are specific situations where he's better, but we'll talk about that later. Moving forward, his main role in most teams is going to be an animal grouper and a buffer support that converts his own elemental mastery stat into an elemental damage bonus for the team with his second ascension passive whenever he swirls an element. That was a long sentence. I feel that one of his universal strengths is his ability to group enemies pretty conveniently with his skill. Although the plunge does knock enemies away a bit, they'll end up more grouped than they were before. And for larger enemies, I noticed when I was doing a lot of testing in the Abyss with Kazuha, for example, I forget what they're called, but they're the triangle invisible thingies that go invisible. They're the mini Simons or whatever. They actually stayed grouped, even though he did the plunge. It didn't really affect them, so there's that too. This is especially relevant in teams that prefer having everyone lumped together, which is pretty much any AoE team really. I can't really critique his design itself all that much, as he has a job to do and he does it very well. It's just that the arrival of Dendro shook up the meta as well as Kazuha's placement in it. Well, not really. Kazuha's place in the meta did shift, but so did literally everyone else's by virtue of Dendro highlighting new elements, stats, and reactions. Naturally, things are going to move around. However, I do believe that Kazuha's role in the meta hasn't changed that much. His main weakness would probably be the elements of Dendro itself. You can't swirl Dendro, so his EM to damage bonus % conversion is literally useless for Dendro. And considering that 3 of Dendro's best reactions, Hyper Boom, Burgeon, and Spread, all rely on outputting Dendro damage, slotting him into a team is only really useful if a non-Dendro swirlable unit is driving the reactions, like an Ayato Hyper Boom team. And even then, Sucrose might be a better fit for her EM share. In terms of Dendro, his best spot in the new meta would be Aggravate teams, as he can swirl Electro, consistently apply Electro and proc Aggravate himself, and boost the Electro damage of his teammates too. And these are all valuable assets for an Aggravate team. He can work well in burning teams and other niche Dendro variants, but they're niche for a reason, and I'm a meta slave, so the more niche stuff isn't in my wheelhouse anyways. With that being said, I think Kazuha's biggest competition, Sucrose, the 4-star we mentioned earlier, has only gotten stronger with the release of Dendro since she synergizes with its reactions better, so in a lot of cases these days, Dendro-wise, Sucrose can supplement a team better. Enough about Dendro though. This dude wasn't designed with Dendro in mind. I just wanted to discuss how his role changed, if at all, since Dendro's inclusion into the game, as well as how he supports those teams, which is barely at all. However, when we start talking about non-Dendro teams, that's when Kazuha really shines. Seeing as he scales with Elemental Mastery for the sake of his second Ascension passive, it also boosts his swirl damage, which makes his own personal damage output rather nice. On top of that, he's almost always the best in slot for most Pyro, Electro, Cryo, and Hydro Hypercarry teams. Between his second Ascension passive, grouping, and Viridescent Venerer, he brings a lot of value to these teams. Think Raiden Hyper, Ayaka Freeze, Ayato Hyper, National, even though Sucrose is better. You get the idea. As a Raiden main myself, if I really wanted to push my Raiden to her limit, at least in a traditional sense, I'd bring Sara, Bennett, and Kazuha, with Bennett being swappable for a Dendro unit in case I want to go aggravate. My point being is that if your main carry deals swirlable elemental damage as their main source of damage output, slotting Kazuha in will be a massive damage boost, if he has a reasonable amount of EM and ER, of course. And that's about it. As an Animo unit, his only reaction is Swirl, although he does have access to other reactions by way of Elemental Infusion. You can even use him as a Hyper Bloom trigger, which is a niche use for him in Dendro teams, but at the end of the day, those are my thoughts and my overall stance on Kazuha as he is as of patch 3.7. Could things change for him in the future? I doubt it, honestly. I feel like Kazuha's glory days are behind him, and were probably cut short, seeing as his full potential wasn't even realized until after his first banner had already gone and left. Considering that his main strengths are grouping and boosting elemental damage itself, these sort of things won't lose valuable for the foreseeable future, if you ask me. But I don't think that'll necessarily change his level of strength very much overall. On top of that, from the looks of things, at least from what I've been seeing on Twitter, it looks like the next meta direction Hoyoverse is gonna take with the Nation of Fontaine is going to be more defensive, and he doesn't have any defensive support, so I don't think Fontaine is going to do very much for him either. Maybe Natlin. I feel like Natlin's going to be a very hyper carry focus, just doing raw damage. We'll see. And that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like to let me know so I know to continue making content that you enjoy. Subscribe to help me reach my goal of 500 subscribers. Roll this there, I can taste it. Follow me on all my social media. The link tree will be in the description down below. And I will see you all in the next video.